livelihood resilience and livelihood management for a resilient future of Southeast Asia. My name is Indria Zafira from RDI, and I will be your host for today's event. This session will focus on sustainable land use, conservation strategies, and disaster risk reduction in wetland effective practices. And we are excited to have our speakers and discussants joining us to share their expertise and insight. Now, to officially kick off our event, I would like to invite Pak Hoverdi Zawani from the Resilience Development Initiative or RDI to deliver the opening remarks. Pak Ferdi, please, the time is yours.
Thank you, Andrea. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar titled Sustainable Land Use Conservation Strategies and Disaster Risk Reduction in Wetland Effective Practice. I feel honored to be here today. I'm Ferdi, Deputy Director for Business and External Relations at RDI. A brief introduction of RDI for those of you who may have not heard or feel acquaintance with us. We are a global think tank committed to resiliency and sustainable development. And this event is organized by RDI's Research Center dedicated to environment, agriculture, and forestry resilience, or we call it EAFOR. And we also happy to get support by Wetland International's Pak Yus, and academic fellows and researchers from UNPAD, UGM, IPB University, Undip, and ITB. Ladies and gentlemen, we are currently in the second part of a webinar series on wetland management. This afternoon, we concentrate on examining issues concerning wetland conservation and community well-being. This webinar will delve into three key topics. One, sustainable land use practice in wet areas, where it will discuss practical examples of land management that balance support for both economic growth and environmental preservation. The second relates to conservation strategies for forested wetlands. This session will display the crucial role of wetland conservations in preserving its biodiversity as well as offsetting carbon through the applications of nature-based solutions. And the third relates to disaster risk reduction. This session will highlight mostly on mitigation actions in wetland landscapes. Through this webinar, RDI is committed to facilitating dialogue among targeted practitioners and multidisciplinary academics to examine wetland management as ways to increase the resilience of our forests, wetlands, and communities that live around and between them. As we continue to strengthen our culture of collaboration and cross-sector approaches, we are confident that this webinar will play a crucial role in shaping the community's resilience. I appreciate our distinguished speakers and discussants for your time and thought to make a success of this webinar. And I encourage all participants to take advantage of this valuable opportunity to expand our collective understanding of wetland management practices. I look forward to a productive and insightful sessions. Thank you very much. Over to you, Indria.
Okay, thank you, Pak Ferdi. Before we move to the next session, we would like to take a group photo with all our speakers, discussants, and participants. Please turn on your cameras and we will capture this moment together. I will give you a few seconds to prepare. And you can use the virtual background, please. Okay. Yeah, please open your camera. I will give you a seconds to prepare. Okay, maybe we can take several shots. I will count down. 3, 2, 1. Okay, smile. One more shot, please. 3, 2, 1. Oh, one more, please. 3, 2, 1. Okay, last one. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, it's the last screen. Okay, thank you, everyone. Now we will move to the main session. Next, I would like to invite our moderator, Dr. Sena Adi Subrata, to provide an overview of today's webinar and moderate our discussion. Dr. Sena Adi Subrata is an expert in environmental conservation and management with extensive experience as a lecturer and researcher at the Faculty of Forestry, Universitas Gadjah Mada. He is also a senior fellow researcher at RDI, focusing on wildlife ecology, molecular ecology, and genetic diversity. Let's welcome our moderator, Dr. Sena. Please, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Indria. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the second series of webinar entitled Harmonizing Wetland Management, Sustaining Ecology and Livelihood Management for a Resilient Future of Southeast Asia. Our focus today will be on sustainable land use, conservation strategies, and disaster risk reduction in wetland effective practice. This session is a part of a series aimed at bringing together experts and stakeholders to share knowledge and collaborate on wetland management. Today, we will dive into a topic such as sustainable land use, disaster risk reduction, and forested wetland management. Okay, before we going further, I would like to introduce the speaker of this today webinar. I'm excited to introduce our esteemed speaker for today's session. First, Dr. Rusilanur from Wetland International Indonesia that will present on community-based wetland management in North Sumatra. Dr. Rusilanur is the head of office or director of Wetland International Indonesia with over 35 years of experience in wetland conservation. His career began in 1987 with a focus on waterbird, particularly migration species, before expanding to the peatland and mangrove conservation. Dr. Jus led one of the Indonesia's first international peatland project in 2001, contributing to the global climate change discourse and served as a part of Indonesian USFCC negotiation team. He has coordinated the Asian wetland waterbird census in Indonesia since the late of 1980s and authored over 100 publications on waterbird, mangrove, and community development. It's amazing. Dr. Yus also held key advisor roles with the Ramsar Convention and National Geographic Explorer. And the second speaker will be Dr. Diki Muslim. He is a senior fellow researcher from RDI. Will speak today on disaster risk reduction in wetland landscape. Dr. Diki Muslim is renowned geological engineering expert and RDI senior research fellow with office at the Faculty of Geological Engineering and postgraduate program at Geological Engineering Wood at the University of Pajajaran, Indonesia. His impressive academic background and research experience in the field make him a respected authority in geological engineering. Dr. Muslim primary office at the Laboratory of Engineering Geology located in Jatinangor, focus on research and development in geological engineering, including soil, rock mechanics, slope stability, and geological research. Meanwhile, His second office at the postgraduate program of geological engineering in Bandung emphasized the education and training of future geological engineering professionals. Dr. Muslim's vast experience and commitment to the field make him essential figure in geological engineering both in Indonesia and beyond. The third speaker will be Dr. Devi N. Hussein from IITB will discuss on strategies for forested wetland conservation. Dr. Devi is an associate professor at the School of Life Science and Technology, Institute Teknologi Bandung, specialized in wetland and coastal ecosystem management, with PhD in plant biology from Ohio State University. She has led numerous research projects on blue carbon, ecosystem restoration, and the management of seagrass and mangrove ecosystem. Her work has contributed significantly to climate change mitigation strategies. She is also published many research and consultant on wetland conservation and ecosystem service, bringing the decade of expertise to the field. Okay, this is my introduction for the amazing speaker for today. And then after discussion, we also have some discussion. And therefore, I also invite Dr. Arzana Sunkar after the presentation. Dr. Arzana Sunkar is a renowned expert in biodiversity conservation and ecotourism with a distinguished career spanning over the decades. Dr. Sunkar holds a PhD in geography from the University of Auckland and MSc in Natural Resource Planning Management from the Asian Institute of Technology. She has served as the secretary to the Biodiversity Conservation Study Program at University IPB University and has a young lecture at various institutions, including Institute Teknologi Sumatera and UGSC Malaysia. Her contribution to conservation effort are evident through her involvement in numerous projects, including the formulation of ecotourism master plan, biodiversity assessment, and development of sustainable tourist practice. And the second discussion will be Dr. Ruby Pribadi from UNDP. Okay, we have all the speaker and discussion introduced. So the next will be the presentation. Okay, the first presentation will be begin with Dr. Jus Rusilanur. Dr. Jus Rusilanur, are you ready to present today?
Okay, I'm ready, Pak.
Okay, please present right now. You will have around 20 minutes from now, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Pak. Would somebody help me, from Panitia, to show my presentation?
Yeah, we will assist you to present your presentation, Pak.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe it took time due to connection.
Okay, good. Okay. May I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Pak Moderator. I'm Yus Rusilanur. I'm trying, allow me to present briefly on our experience on working with local communities on peatland management in one of our project site in North Sumatra. Next, please. Yeah, I'm currently working with Wetlands International Indonesia. This is a national NGO with a global network operated in Asia, Europe, Latin and Central America, and Africa. So our global office is in Ede Wageningen in the Netherlands. And then in doing our works, the work ideas of Wetlands International Indonesia is actually summarized in 3 streams. We call it streams, which is delta and coast, river and lake, and peatlands. So in the operational setting, the ideas of our work to be carried out summarized in 6 thematics focuses that will become the outcome of the organization. So the 6 outcomes will serve as a shelter for operational activities within our each stream. Each outcomes may relate on activities in more than one stream or even in all 3 streams. And in the final stage, the implementation of the ideas listed on our outcomes is expected to have an impact on 3 areas. At the most right, it's namely healthy wetlands, resilient wetlands communities, and reduce climate risk. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. And then if we see the national level in Indonesia, the government of Indonesia or the Indonesian commitment on global efforts on tackling climate change, especially to the sustainable management of wetlands, is expressed on the last or latest countries and has nationally determined contribution NDC with increased emission reduction target from 29% in the first NDC and updated into 31.89% unconditionally. So without any help from other countries, and from 41% in the updated NDC to 43.20% conditionally, meaning if we receive any support from the other parties. This enhanced NDC is the transition towards Indonesian second NDC, which will be aligned with the long-term low carbon and climate resiliency strategy 2050 with a vision to achieve net zero emission by 2060 or sooner. So furthermore, it refers to the restoring function of degraded ecosystem, including wetland ecosystem like peatland, as a necessary prerequisite for embarking a more ambitious commitment to further reduction by 2030. So on the current commitment, Indonesia has set up ambitious target to restore 2 million hectares of peatland by 2030. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide. Okay. Initially, Indonesia has estimated 21 hectare of tropical peatland. This is, let's say, roughly about 300 times of Singapore. This is also 60% of Southeast Asia peatlands and about 50% of tropical peatlands. Millions of rural Indonesian directly depend on the peatland resources for their livelihood. Peatlands provide water supply, provide flood control, and biodiversity habitat. So healthy peatlands ecosystem are resistant to fire. The crucial role of peatlands was also stressed by the Global Convention on Wetlands, which is Ramsar Convention. This refers to the city of Ramsar in Iran, where in 1971 they declared what they call a Convention on Wetlands, and Indonesia has ratified in 1991. So the Ramsar Convention urged the world that 50 million hectares of peatlands need to be restored by 2050 to meet the 1.5 degrees Celsius target as set in the Paris Agreement. Although this is very, very difficult to achieve, as perhaps we have passed the 1.5 degree Celsius target. So the next slide. Yeah, the peatlands is actually a living place for millions of people in Indonesia. They are directly depend on peatland areas. Next slide, please. So the chain of problems in peatlands in Indonesia actually pointed into the unsustainable use of peatlands for economic purposes. The illegal logging and especially the drainage of peatlands for agriculture and estate business has led into the forest and land fires, which directly resulted into a climate change disaster due to huge carbon emission. Then local communities are the closest directly impacted by the disaster in terms of the health problem, in terms of loss of livelihood, their livelihood. Next slide, please. So under the Eco DRR program, which we done a few years ago, the scalable models for community-based Eco DRR, ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction are developed. The overall objective of the project is to increase community resilience in peat ecosystems and enabling for sustainable development. The specific objective is to progress or to increase the eco-DRR practices in peatland ecosystem that contribute to increasing the resilience of communities. We are working in the grassroots level, but keep engaging with local to national level stakeholder for mainstreaming the eco-DRR approach and model for upscaling. So the ECO-DRR upscaling model includes intervention on ecosystem restoration or protection, climate smart livelihood, and disaster risk reduction. Through this approach, we are promoting the rehabilitation of peatlands to what we call a paludiculture technique, or using the native species living in peat areas. Community engagement using financial support, which I will briefly inform you later, and conservation measures through what we call as a biorights schemes. I will explain later, and encourage local communities to prevent, monitor, and respond to peat fires. And next, please. So we are using what we call ourselves as a biorights approach, as a kind of bonding mechanism for interest-free conditional loan, linking nature-based solution initiatives and increasing people income at the same time. So the main goal is to increase the functionality of ecosystem, which normally takes a long time. While waiting, the community groups receive assistance or incentive from the project to increase their income. Group members are encouraged to fulfill the entire what we call as a package of agreement, or at least meet a certain percentage agreed upon the outset. So if this is achieved, then the conditional loan we prepared earlier will then be converted into grant. So become hibah in Indonesian terminology. And next, please. So taking a bioright approach require a system approach. So instead of just determining special technical solution to address local problems, it is even more important to apply a system approach, which means linking what happens to an ecosystem and hydrological process with social, institutional, and economic processes. So apply it in a large landscape and see the possibilities of all interacting. This slide shows that the joint dialogue at the beginning of the activities, you can see in the top of the slide, is the key to the success of all work, an important factor in sustainability through the application of adaptive management principle. Next. Okay. So the assignment of field facilitators to work directly and stay at community neighborhood is vital for the successful program. It is vital for the program development, vital for monitoring and evaluation, and conflict resolution at the earliest possibilities. So understanding the root cause of the problem and finding common action to solution together with local communities in coordination with the village government. So these are all key of fulfillment of agreed objective of the initiatives. Next, I think I have limited time now. As part of the biodiversity mechanism, so we have some agreed program that's including building of canal blocking to effectively block the water in the upstream of village. And then community group initiatives to monitor the planted native peat species. The third one is community participation in peat fires fighting. Number 4 is construction of a fires monitoring tower, which voluntarily built by community groups. Number 5 is actively conducting regular pit groundwater monitoring and training on the production of fish-based aquaculture product. And next, please. So the next please. Wait a minute. Can you earlier one slide earlier? Okay, so the effectiveness of biorights is also dealing with the identification of relevant wait a minute, it's not can you move further one slide? Okay, yeah, this is the thing which I mentioned earlier, that the effectiveness of biorights is determined with the attractiveness of local communities to participate on our project. Next one, please. And then we also try to invite local government, but also central government to participate and support our program. So we are working with BRGM, we were working with Bapenas, we were working with Kementerian Desa, and then we put some help, we put some initiative to also support the government issue in what we call pertanian tanpa bakar. So agriculture management without burning in the field. And next slide. Yeah, this slide presents some of the lessons learned during the project. It ranged from the effectiveness of biorights approach on the engagement of local communities, on stewardship of the environment, strong interest on the upscaling of the eco-DRR, but also the observing a challenge to align multi-year bioright mechanism into the government mechanism, which normally not accept the multi-years program. So we learn about this in the field. I think last slide. So I would say that our work is not completed yet. It is actually in an important period where local communities and local government has started to see the effectiveness of our intervention, not only for the environment protection perspective, but also more importantly for the development of sustainable livelihood for local communities. So linking with the peatland protection and restoration. So in this case, we appeal global support to keep the momentum alive and to convince our local community that local action is a big matter for global effort to tackle the climate change. One last thing to say is that the attendance of our field facilitator 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the whole project period is very much important and become a key factor to understand what is going on in the community, and then we discuss with them on how to solve how to make a solution based on what people thinking, and then based on the scientific methodology. I think that's all what I can say at the moment. Perhaps we can discuss it later. Thank you, Pak Moderator.
Pak Sena, you are still mute. Pak Sena, you are still mute. Please turn on your.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
yeah.
sorry. Thank you very much, Dr. Noor, for sharing those insightful practice on sustainable land use of wetland, and also finishing your presentation very on time. I note that Dr. Noor's projects give great attention to the welfare of human or local communities living in the wetland or adjacent the wetland. It's very, very good idea, I think. Okay, next, I would like to invite Dr. Diki Muslim from RBI to speak about disaster risk reduction in wetland landscape. Are you ready, Dr. Diki Muslim?
Yes, sir. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, of course. Yes,
Okay,
please.
thank you.
The time is yours, Dr. Diki.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Subrata, and I'm happy today that I can present something which is a bit, let's say, rare to us in the geological communities related to the wetlands landscape. I'm also happy that in this forum, RDI make me meet with Dr. Noor, Dr. Yusuf Surya Noor, who was the same city with my city in Cimahi. So I'm happy. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Noor. Thank you, RDI, and thank you also for this opportunity to present our experience, a small experience actually, related with the wetland landscape. Next, please. Okay, next, please. Okay, next, please. I just want to mention about the three things that related with wetlands. And I'm trying to find out first the definition of wetlands and where it can make some coherence with our research and also our focus in earth science. This is some definitions that I can have, and mainly I took from the Wetland International actually, and this is very helpful for us to understand about these issues about wetlands landscape. Next, please. Next. Okay. I would like to put out to say that Indonesia is not in one of these 10 largest wetlands ranked by area. So though I was a bit surprised that Dr. Noor mentioned about 60% of our peatlands, our wetlands in Indonesia is part of the tropical peatlands. So it means on the global scale, we have to be one of the biggest actually, but it's not in one location. So there are so many locations in our country, in Indonesia. It means that we have more difficulties to manage this type of problems in wetlands. Next, please. Okay, so one thing that I would like to stress out about the characteristic of wetlands is the existence of water or ice and the earth materials, whether it is soils, the terminology, or it is rocks. So this also one of our concern because many of our disaster event in Indonesia related with these two types of materials, the water and also the earth's materials. So this is one of our also focus that we would like to learn more from some cases that maybe is not so much related to each other. Next, please. Okay. I would like to put some stress out also from Wetland International. The definition of the wetland may be found in, for example, like in the coast, we have shorelines, beaches, mangroves, and coral reefs. In the estuaries, we have deltas, mudflats, and in the floodplain, in the marshes or swamps, and also in shallow lakes, like volcanic crater lakes, peatlands, oxbow lakes. Those are the locations where the earth scientists, the engineers, the geologists working actually. But sometimes we have no or less focus on the biological side of this area, though we understand that there are many relationships actually in between. So those locations are also ones of our let's say focus for the research and works in Indonesia. Next, please. So this is the website of BRGM, the National Agency for Mangroves and Peat. And I think we have also a relationship with this using our views of science. But I'm trying to check whether through Indonesian Association of Geologists, IAGI, or whether the Geological Agency in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, it seems that we are rarely connected to these issues, especially for the wetland issues. Next, please. There is a small book. Dr. Noor also mentioned about the agriculture without, let's say, burning. And also in our case, we learn about the possibility of combustion, self-combustion from the coal potential in the field and also in the mining area, which is also one of the cause of the forest fire, for examples in Kalimantan or in Sumatra. So this is also one of our new exciting findings, actually, that there are a lot of things that we can do together. Next, please. Okay, from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, I know about this Sipongi. I think we have several common things to prevent the fire, the forest fire, especially in the location where peatlands are dominant. Next, please. Okay, this is the issues of peatlands in Indonesia, especially in Kalimantan and Sumatra, where tectonically this area is a stable area or more stable than other places in Indonesia, related with the geological disaster, of course. Next, please. Okay, and then we go to the location of research and location of works from geological agency. I mean, this is the one of example where the focus of our works related to the earth science and geology is groundwater. And this issue, this groundwater issue, has been very correlated with the Ministry of Public Works because of the groundwater issues. And now it's become also one of our programs in geological community to monitor the groundwater as well as the hydrology or the surface water. This is one of example, one of the application from the Geological Agency of Ministry of ASDM, Energy and Mineral Resources. It is called SIPASTI to monitor the groundwater. So we can see here that there are many locations around Jakarta to monitor the groundwater. And now it's become also national issues because groundwater necessity, groundwater usage, and also the scarcity of surface water, not only in Java Island, but also in Indonesia, the whole Indonesia. So hopefully in the future, in the near future maybe, the geological agency and the geological community also will take the focus also in the issues of groundwater and also surface water. This location is in Jakarta, and to the east, we have also in Subang, in Karawang, some problems due to the industrialization and also due to the change of the shorelines between these areas. Next, please. Okay. Apart from Indonesia, I also found that wetlands is also managed by the USGS, United States Geological Survey. So it is actually one of our partner in geology for USGS, but not about this issue. So actually we have opportunities to learn more to manage the wetlands like in US that we can maybe put in the tropical wetlands in Indonesia, because in USGS even they have a management for that wetlands issues. Okay, next please. Okay, now we take the issues of potential disaster or hazard in wetland landscape. So some hazards or maybe already disasters in our case, for example, like forest fire on peatland, we have in many places, many provinces in Indonesia. And in the future, I am worried that it is not only some provinces which already experience the forest fire on peatlands. Uh, for the development, the urban development also in the future, maybe we have possibility to extend more locations. Another one is the potential hazard of wetlands is land subsidence. You know, in Jakarta, we have these issues, and many scientists, many engineers also found that this problem is not only by nature, but also by humans. In Pekalongan and in Semarang, for example, in the northern part of Java Island. Another one is coastal abrasion accretion. We have also problems in Subang, for example, in Gresik, and in Semarang, of course, there are also some problems about this. And also another one is liquefaction. It is related with the earthquake. And our experience is very high magnitude, actually. For example, like in Padang, Ambacang Hotel, for example, or Palu in 2018, opened our eyes that this liquefaction hazard or liquefaction disaster at the time was also possible to have happens in northern coast of Java Island. So this possibility in the future has become also our concern. Another one is the pollution, like industrial estate in Banten, Jabodetabek, Central, West, and East Java. So this become also a potential disaster in the future for the wetlands landscape. And the last but not least is about the overpopulation. For example, in West Java alone, the population now already 48 millions of people, 48 millions of inhabitants. So in the western part of Java Island. So it is vulnerable actually to experience disaster and also potential to destruct the nature, especially because of the necessity of water, necessity of land, that we have to think about these issues in the future. Next, please. Okay, now I take the case study. Actually, we have two case studies, but time is maybe not enough. But one our of case study is in Subang Regency in West Java, and another one is in Pekalongan. In Subang Regency in West Java is managed by one foundation, which is also the director of the foundation, Pak Heru, is already here. I think maybe Pak Heru can give more information if it's necessary to have. The involvement of pentahelix stakeholders here in Subang is actually very wide. And I'm happy that many part of the stakeholders are taking works in our works here in Subang. And this is the pentahelix stakeholders that we found working in this area. Next, please. Okay, this is the, sorry, it is in Bahasa, but anyway, you can see the blueprint of the cooperation between many parties, including military, including the ministry, and also the university, research areas, research institutes also, which the goals of our working here actually to engage with the local community. So this is very interesting for us because mainly in earth science, in geological issues, we work with the companies. But in this case, we try to work also with the local communities to enhance their economic life. Next, please. Okay, this is the location in Subang Regency where we can see the accretion process in the shoreline of Subang Regency. So only in 10 years from 2018 to 2023, we can see how this location changed and how the people adapt to the condition in this place. and we try to understand first about what is happening here, what is the problem actually, and then we try to communicate also with the local communities within this area. So you can see the latest satellite imagery in 2023. There are some locations where the green belt mangrove to support adaptation is already changed. So we can imagine the northern part of Java Island from Banten to Banyuwangi, for example. There should be a lot of problems actually related with these issues of disaster or hazard. Next, please. This is just some examples, the locations where we work in that green belt. Okay, thank you, Nadira. We try to map first, and then we have some, let's say, communications with the local communities there to try to utilize the newly acquainted area, and it is wetlands. So if we can make this a model, maybe we can use this one to be replicated in other places, not only in Northern Java Island, but also in the coastline of Java Sea, whether it is in Sumatra, in Kalimantan, in Bali, Northern Bali, for example. So then our work could be replicated by the local community to enhance their potential economy, and also to give the contribution to reduce the greenhouse gas effect. So this net zero emission also one of our concerns, although it's only one place, a very small 1 or 20 hectares. Next, please. So there are also location in this place, and with a total about 22 hectares, using the restoration of silver fishery. We think that, of course, this is not the earth science issues about the silver fishery, but the water issues, the sedimentation issues, and so the accretion and abrasion issues also one of our concern. And other thing is related with the climate change, since that we think that the rise of sea level will be very intensive within years in years to come. So we have to be aware about this location. So then we don't build something that at the end of the day it will be less useful for other people, for common people, for the community. Next, please. Okay, that is my presentation for today. Thank you very much for the attention, and I'm very happy that I can present something based on our experience and based also our works with the geological community and also the earth science community here in Indonesia. Thank you, Pak Dr. Subrata. The time I give you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Didi, for your enlightening presentation. Your presentation provides us an understanding of wetland management from a geological perspective. From this presentation, I also note the importance of considering human or community safety when managing the wetland landscape. It's also very, very important, I think. Okay,
Yes.
Before we jump to the question and answer session, I would like to invite the third speaker today. Up next is Dr. Devi and Husin from IDB, who will present strategies for forested wetland conservation. Dr. Husin, are you ready for presentation?
Yes, I am. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, the time is yours.
Thank
for
you.
20 minutes.
Okay. If I may, I would like to share slides from my part. So, okay, hopefully it is already on the screen.
Yes, I'm
Yes,
ready.
okay. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Subrata, and thank you. Good afternoon to everybody, to the organizing committee, and to all the participants. This is the title or topic that was assigned to me by the organizer. So I hope I will be able to deliver this talk in accordance with what is expected. In essence, I will be talking in very general terms about the strategies that can be taken in the conservation of forested wetlands. Before that, however, I would like to just have clarify a couple of things, and that is, firstly, as we have already heard from the previous speakers, there are actually many types of wetland ecosystems, and there are many ways to classify them. So it's a very complex situation when we are speaking about wetlands. But in view of the limited time and in view of the topic that has been proposed, we will classify or the topic of this discussion is limited to the forested wetlands. And by that, if we are Indonesia, in Indonesia, the forested wetlands are primarily in the form of peat swamp forests, which is the hutan rawa gambut and the mangroves. So we have to, I'm assuming that this discussion then pertains to these forested wetlands. And then secondly, I would like to place the issue of conservation here within the broader context of management, because I look at conservation as, in fact, a form of management. So I might be using these two terms interchangeably. So if you look here in this figure, just to make clear that when we speak about management in general, it's not just solely conservation. But if we speak about the ecosystems, let's say in this case, wetland ecosystems, we need to first assess the condition of these wetland ecosystems and whether they fall into the category of healthy or unhealthy in terms of the state of their condition in ecological condition. If the mangroves and peat swamp forests that we're talking about are in a pretty healthy condition, then we can talk about how to further conserve their situation. But as we know, at this time, a lot of the ecosystems that we see are being threatened by anthropogenic activities. And so we find a lot of them in conditions that are relatively unhealthy or threatened or degraded. And so we also have to speak about restoration or rehabilitation efforts when we talk about the management of wetlands in general. So just again, that I might be using these terms interchangeably: management, restoration, and conservation. But of course, the end aim is, of course, we would like to preserve the conditions of these forested wetlands. And on the figure on the right, just also what we can see about this management in general. And the basic premise is that healthy ecosystems provide the ecosystem services that we need for the human well-being. And if these healthy ecosystems can provide those services, then we will have a society, a community that will be fulfilled in their goods and services and will be in the well-being, a well-being condition, and will be a resilient society. And then in turn, if the society is in a good condition, and then we can sustainably manage these wetlands or natural ecosystems, then this cycle will be able to continue. However, if the ecosystems are in an unhealthy situation, or if they are in a degraded situation, then of course the ecosystem services that they provide will decline. And then our job is then to restore, conserve, and manage these ecosystem services so that they can still be maintained sustainably. So what I will present is actually just a list really of some measures that have already been recognized and also practiced in the field of wetland conservation. So in general, the conservation and sustainable management of these forested wetlands can be achieved by implementing a combination of the following strategies that I will present. These are actually just a compilation from various sources, literature sources, case studies, and lessons learned. But these are the recurring themes that I found recurring in many cases. And so I would just kind of summarize them in these different points. So the first point is, of course, protected areas and area zonation. So obviously, if you are talking about conservation of these areas, then we need to establish and maintain these protected areas to safeguard them from development, logging, and other disruptive activities. Of course, in here we need the legal protection to ensure long-term commitment to conservation. And of course, also, when we, let's say, have natural reserve areas and things like that, then we need to create and maintain buffer zones as filters around these forested wetlands to help protect them from pollution, runoff, and other external impacts, including, of course, minimizing the anthropogenic activities and access of people into the area, if depending on the case that may be. And then, of course, the designation of zones according to the function and objectives, because, of course, we know that also from the previous examples that these wetlands are intertwined with communities that live within these areas. And so we will have to think about how we can create zonations that can facilitate both the objectives of conservation and on one hand, and on the other hand, also human needs. So that then implies the sustainable management practices, which is, for example, if you are talking about forestry, let's say if there is still forestry going on in an area, then of course we would need to use sustainable forestry practices, prevent and control fires. This is the case in, for example, in the peat swamp forest, and also land use planning to avoid fragmentation, and formulation of management strategies through novel tools and approaches. By this, I mean also methods of analysis or formulation that are currently being developed. For example, we not just use, let's say, policy making by different approaches that we could use, like, for example, the theory of change or use of DAPSIR methods, things that are not more advanced than just simply using SWOT analysis, for example, in formulating policy making. And then restoration projects here, which meant is the implementation of restoration to rehabilitate degraded forested wetlands. And restoration here may involve replanting native vegetation, restoring hydrological conditions, and removing invasive species. And this is particularly true, for example, when we already talked about peat swamp forests. So a major problem, of course, is the drainage of the peat swamps. And so there is a problem of restoring these hydrological conditions, as I will also mention later. And then another recurring theme when we talk about this conservation of wetlands is that, of course, collaboration and partnerships. So that must involve many parties that are working together. So this is both horizontally and vertical coordination collaboration among government agencies and non-governmental organizations, or the NGOs, scientists, the industry, businesses, and local communities to enhance the conservation efforts. And of course, these partnerships can leverage the resources, the expertise, and influence to achieve conservation goals. And then we also have to take into account definitely the policy and legislation. So we need the support and the advocacy for policies and legislations that protect and conserve forested wetlands. And we actually already have some of that. And of course, what we need is to raise awareness and further enhance the role, I think, of this advocacy and support. So the strong legal frameworks and incentives can drive broader conservation efforts and enforce protection measures. And also, of course, this is also has been shown by the previous presentations, is that the very important aspect is in conservation is community engagement. So we need to involve the local communities and stakeholders in conservation efforts, consideration and inclusion of what is called the local ecological knowledge, or LEK, in forested wetland conservation. And when we also work, we need to work with the local communities and other stakeholders, and also present education and training programs that can, again, raise awareness about the problems and the possible efforts that can be conducted. So this also included also, for example, in teaching in local schools and just the community in general. So this is a recurring thing that is we always find, and this is something that must always be considered. There is no way that we can work in conservation without involving the local community and engaging the community in the process. This is an example. This is a very well-known example. I'm sure most of you are familiar with, but this has been used as an example in this publication about the use of local ecological knowledge in mangrove conservation. And this is the case of building with nature. As you know, there is a case of the case in the northern coast of central Java, the areas of Demak, where there is the involvement of local, if you read here, this, the Building with Nature project. It aims to develop a coastal infrastructure design approach that combines local ecological knowledge, ecological regeneration, and smart engineering while introducing sustainable land management practice through transdisciplinary cooperation. And this is known for the introduction of what is called the hybrid engineering of dealing with the coastal erosion that is happening in the area. And then other things, as I already mentioned, there is the hydrological management. This is particularly true in the management of peat swamp forests that have been drained, that have been experienced drainages. And this may involve controlling water levels and also managing water flows to maintain the wetlands ecological balance. If you speak about mangroves, then perhaps also related to how the patterns of tidal, the tides can be manipulated if they have already been, or engineered if they have already been disturbed. And then invasive species can be a problem in certain areas. We know that invasive species are a problem in many cases. And so there is a need for assessment, monitoring, and control of invasive species that can disrupt the natural state and ecological balance of forested wetlands. Other things that some of the other recurring themes is, of course, research and monitoring. So there is a need for continued research and monitoring to understand the health of these forested wetlands, including for scientific studies, scientific sampling and research projects that are related to these wetlands. And of course, we are speaking about the temporal changes. We need to monitor and see how things change with time and assess the effectiveness of the conservation strategies. So if we are already working on something, then we need to monitor and see the effectiveness in order to be able to implement the adaptive management so that we can always fine tune and adjust what we are doing. And probably lastly is the related to climate change mitigation, because we know that if the conservation of mangroves and peatland swamps particularly is very much related to how we conserve what is now called as blue carbon and green carbon. And so we need also to address the impacts of climate change and forested wetlands. And so the efforts of this conservation is also in terms of how we can increase the role or enhance the role as carbon stores, while at the same time also reducing the emission that may be a product of these wetlands when they are degraded. I think there's also mentioned Bayus Noor also mentioned about the NDC, the nationally determined contribution. So this is very much closely related to how we conserve these wetlands and be able to conserve their ability to store carbon in large amounts. So speaking about the strategy for wetland conservation, this is just as an example of a strategy that is from Ontario, Canada. I know it's a temperate region, but it's just to show you that this is a good example of how we can make a wetland conservation strategy formulated in a rather succinct form, and which it has a clear formulation. That's their vision, their goals, their outcomes, and their targets. And this strategy, actually, if you read here, it summarizes several key points that have been presented earlier. So you talk about awareness, knowledge that needs to be enhanced, partnerships, and the approaches to conservation. And if we look at our case here in Indonesia, this is also an example that for the specific strategy points here, I only present here the vision and the mission, but the specific strategy points have also been outlined in Indonesia's national strategy for wetland management. And in this case, the title of the document is Strategy for Wetland Management, but in this case also, they only talk about peat swamps and mangrove ecosystems. So this is a document is particularly targeted for peat swamp forests and mangroves, but in it there is also an outline of all the points of strategies, that goals, strategies, and targets that we can achieve to conserve these wetlands. And finally, I think this is probably the main message or the take-home message from this all is that to always remember that when we manage, or whether that's in the terms of restoration or conservation, that when we manage an ecosystem, that we have to always remember and look at it as an ecosystem. So that means that we need to look at it as a system in which there are interrelationships, there are interactions that we need to maintain. And this approach is actually a strategy for the integrated management of all the components, all the resources that are in this ecosystem that promotes conservation and sustainable use in an equitable way. And it so happens that when I was just trying to point this out, this is outlined in the CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity, they have stated 12 principles of the ecosystem approach. And again, this is, I think, very important because the people tend to look at systems as something that is separate from their surroundings when we look at mangroves or peat swamp forests. But again, this is the main thing is that we have to remember this as an ecosystem and approach the management strategy also as looking at an ecosystem. I highlighted here a few of the points. Now, number 3 here is that ecosystem managers should consider the effects of their activities on adjacent and other ecosystems. So this is very important. I think we need to remember the landscape perspective or the seascape perspective when we talk about mangroves. And remember that boundaries are ecological boundaries. So not just look at administrative boundaries, but also look at ecological boundaries that are important in our case of management. And then also conservation of ecosystem structure and functioning. So again, this is just to emphasize that every ecosystem has structure and function. They have components and they have processes going on so that when we restore them, we have to again remember to try to come back to this as a priority target in the ecosystem approach. And then lastly, the ecosystem approach should seek the appropriate balance between an integration of conservation and use of biological diversity. Because this is the case of the CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity, but that principle is the same whether we are talking about wetlands or other cases, and that is that we have that sustainability goal is that we have to, in one hand, conserve the ecosystem, but yet there are also use for the resources for human needs. So there is that at least three things that we need to look at. That is the ecological, the economic, and the social aspects of the situation. So I think so aiming the reaches or balance of the three objectives of conservation is important. But of course, this is all easier said than done. So maybe what I have presented is more of a theoretical basis for conservation. In practice, of course, there will always be challenges to be met and improving adaptations to be made. But I think there are also encouraging case examples that show us that we are on the right track. This is on the right track, and we can optimistically say that these strategies can indeed produce the results or the results that we wish for. I think that is what I can say at the moment. Thank you very much for your attention and patience.
Thank you very much, Dr. Devi, for the comprehensive overview of conservation strategies. From this presentation, I also note that societal well-being and resilience are very important aspects when conserving wetland ecosystem without neglecting the balancing between integration, biodiversity, and sustainable use of the wetland. Okay, thank you to our three speakers for their insightful presentation on sustainable land use practices, disaster risk reduction, and strategies for wetland landscape. Following that, we now welcome today's discussion to share their perspective and reflection on the topic presented. Now, we will hear from our first discussion, Dr. Arziana Sunkar from IBB. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Please, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sena. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arziana Sunkar, but people also call me Ina. So we just heard from the three enlightening speakers about the importance of wetland and their conservation with regard to sustainable land use, disaster risk reduction, and also strategies for conservation. And as we all know, wetlands are vital habitats for many of our biodiversity and also for various migratory birds and fishes as well. Mr. Yus also mentioned about the Ramsar Convention, which is also known as the Convention on Wetlands of International Importance. So Indonesia also have wetlands that are important internationally because it is also home for some of the migratory birds and also fishes. And also we heard from the three speakers as well about the importance of managing wetlands and also the importance of wetlands for the society. So you heard from the speakers, they also mentioned about enhanced nationally determined contributions. Now, because I'm from the forestry, perhaps some of you also heard about Indonesia's Folu Net Sink 2030. Well, the forest and other land use, or acronym as FOLU sector, or forestry and land sector, it plays an important role in efforts to achieve this NDC, the national determined contributions, and especially to offset the emissions from sectors that are difficult to reduce emissions. And this important role is also due to the significant functions of peatland in storing carbon. So one of the 5 main strategies, mitigation actions in the FOLU sector developed by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry focus on peatland management. And it focuses on 2 main strategies, which is the partnership in peatland ecosystem management and rewetting and development of supporting facilities. I think this was also mentioned by Mr. Yu's presentations. This is important as based on the Ministry of Environment and Forestry data, our peatland is the largest tropical peatland area in the world, and it is the 4th largest peatland area in the world. So we know that wetland, and if we look at Mr. Yu's presentations on peatland, it is very important for us all. But besides the biodiversity, equally important also wetland are resources for local communities. I think from the 3 presenters, we have that idea because every presenter also speaks on the importance of involving the community and also the importance of wetlands to the community. So because wetlands are also resources for local communities, it provides livelihood, resources, and essential ecosystem services. However, unsustainable use has led also to widespread degradation, increasing the risk and detrimental impacts on the surrounding wetlands. That's where the reduction risk is important. So in response, from Mr. Yu's presentation, we also see that the Wetlands International Indonesia has implemented a community-based peatland management initiative to address these challenges. And I think overall, through this community-driven approach, the local stakeholders have been actively engaged in the design, the decision-making, and also implementation of peatland management strategies. Also, from the last presenter, Ms. Devi also state the importance of local knowledge. And so by leveraging the community's deep understanding of the local environment and the traditional practices, the initiative has been able to develop tailored solutions that balance the need of agriculture, resource extraction, and of course, wetland conservation. And the benefits have been significant, including improved peatland hydrology, reduced fire incidents, and enhanced biodiversity. But of course, the such project also face challenges such as addressing the competing land use claim and ensuring long-term sustainability. And that's why policy is important, as has been mentioned by the presenter. So at the core of the approach is the emphasis on community engagement and the integration of local ecological knowledge with scientific research and best practices. So by empowering local communities as the stewards of the land, wetland conservation projects has fostered a sense of ownership and commitment, increasing the likelihood of the long-term sustainability of its management. So as we've seen from the speakers' presentations, this project really aligned with the Indonesians' Follow Net Sing 2030, and the initiative has provided the necessary policy support, financial resources, and of course technical assistance to scale up these efforts across the country. And recognizing the inherent linkages between these many types of wetlands, it was also focused on integrating the peatland agriculture and also wetland management to promote more sustainable land use practices. And then we also hear that wetlands plays a vital role in mitigating the impacts of natural disaster, and this is where the second presentations becomes important. It says that enhancing community resilience as well. So as natural buffers against devastating effect of flooding, storms, and coastal erosion, wetlands are increasingly recognized as essential components of effective disaster risk reduction strategies, as shown by Mr. Dickey's presentations. And at the heart of the wetlands disaster risk reduction capabilities lies their unique hydrological functions. And wetlands act as a sponge. They absorb and they store the excess water during extreme weather events, which also helps to regulate water flow, slow down floodwaters, and reduce the risk of devastating floods. And additionally, the healthy wetland ecosystem can dissipate or stabilize the shorelines, providing crucial protections against the destructive effects of storm and coastal erosion. And in order to enhance the disaster mitigations and resilience in wetland areas, a range of strategies can be employed. And this would include early warning systems, ecosystem-based approach that harness the natural functions of the wetlands, and also community-based disaster risk management initiatives that empower the local stakeholders. So furthermore, the restoration of the degraded wetland has proven to be an effective disaster risk reduction strategy, as demonstrated by the success stories in some of the areas, like I think it was mentioned by Mr. Diki in Subang. So by integrating the conservation and sustainable management of wetland into a comprehensive disaster risk reduction plans, the communities can harness the power of nature to safeguard the lives, their livelihood, and also the long-term resilience in the face of mounting disaster risk. And mentioned by Ms. David, there are a lot of many types of wetland, and she focuses on the forested wetland conservations. And these are also among the most precious and ecologically significant ecosystem of our planet Earth. And as these unique habitats provide a wealth of benefits, both environmental and human-centric. They serve us for biodiversity, and then carbon sinks, and also regulatory of water cycles, and also support the livelihood and cultural identities of many local communities. So I think we can be clear that wetlands have very important functions for our community as well. And as underlined by Ms. Devi, conservation is a form of management. I agree with that, because protecting and restoring this invaluable forested wetland it requires a multifaceted approach, including establishment of protected areas, implementation of controlled logging practices, and also the undertaking of reforestation and habitat restoration initiatives. And successful case studies, I think we can also see in Berbak Sembilang landscape in Indonesia. It demonstrates the potential of integrated community-led conservation efforts. But however, forested wetlands face numerous challenges and barriers to effective conservations, including the pressure of rapid urbanization, agricultural expansion, and resource extraction, and as well as the complex and fragmented nature of land tenure and governance system. So addressing these issues require collaborative efforts engaging policymakers, land managers, and local communities. And a landscape level ecosystem-based approach that connects these forested wetlands with other ecosystems is crucial for maintaining biodiversity and resilience against climate change. So as a summary, I think we all, as we face global environmental crisis, the conservation of this precious wetland ecosystem stands as a critical imperative. All three speakers highlighted the fact that managing wetlands sustainably cannot be separated from human aspects due to their interlinkages between the two. Thus, a sustainable land use of wetlands will require community approach by directly involving them through direct participation or also through their local ecological knowledge, as wetlands have essential functions to enhance healthy society. So by embracing integrated community-based solution, I think we can secure the long-term preservations of these invaluable resources for both the community and our beloved planet. I think that is all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sungkar. And next, let's welcome Dr. Rudy Pribadi from University Diponegoro University. Your time is about 10 minutes. Dr. Rudy Pribadi, are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready. Thank you.
Okay,
Can
thank
you hear
you.
me?
The time is yours right now.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I think what the three speaker mentioned, it's very interesting, very important, even though perhaps it's not easy to do so. Some perhaps very practical, but other may be conceptual. So we must be really careful when we try to practice our concept. I agree with most of what the three speakers mentions, but perhaps there's still some question though we should to discuss. Like for example, what Dr. Devi said about the community engagement, or more emphasized on local ecological knowledge, because in some places, for example, like in the northern coast of Central Java, like in Semarang, Demak, the ecosystem it's already converted. I mean, from mangrove to the fish pond since years ago. So when we try to talk with them, the oldest perhaps, they don't really understand, or they don't really know what mangrove looks like before. So I think it's not easy to find what kind of local knowledge they understand. And also, like invasive species, what Dr. Devi mentioned, actually it's not really invasive, because they are mangrove, or perhaps mangrove associates, and in the normal condition, for example, like in the natural state, for example, like in Papua, we can't really see those, we call it as invasive species like Acanthus, Acrosticum, Darius, or Nipa as a dominant species. But in some degraded area, for example, like in Segaranakan, or maybe in Rio province, I know that those species are become dominant and invasive. So it's really not easy how to compete with their growth, because they are very dominant, and even we try to rehabilitate using true mangrove, it's not easy anymore, because they are growing faster, even faster than the true mangrove itself. So this is it's hard work to compete with this kind of species, which is actually it's local, but become dominant. And what you mentioned about the local community, we also has to be careful because there are many types of locals. Some are maybe quite honest. We can work together, but some not really, because they have different motivation, perhaps, maybe more to the economical, not really in terms of conservation they are really thinking about. So we must be careful when we work with the locals. And most of the locals, when we ask about what they want, normally they want to solve the problem as fast as possible. For example, if we offer whether they would like a hard structure to cope the operations, or a soft structure, meaning planting vegetations, they would rather say that the hard structure is better for them because it's faster. They don't really know actually the effect of the hard structure, for example. They don't know about the other functions or the ecological function of the soft structure. So in terms of working the local, I think we should be careful, and we should also educate them about the ecosystem, because maybe what they need, it's the instant thing that actually it's not, or maybe it's not as good as the ecological solution we should to promote. And talking about collaborations, actually there are lots of knowledge. We call it for the mangrove, we call it, for example, integrated coastal management, or some people mention integrated coastal zone management, which is theoretically it's very good. And what Dr. Devi or maybe Dr. Vicky and you mentioned today, actually it's part of those kind of integrated coastal or wetland management. But as a matter in fact, it's not really easy to practice. Or maybe due to some problem that this ICM or ICZM, it's not really applied for any area in Indonesia. So we should really careful when we try to apply this kind of coastal management or integrated coastal management, because it's very site specifics, and also need real collaborations between stakeholders involved on certain areas. And we might forget something that we should to consider what is the main problems we actually facing when we conduct ecosystem rehabilitations, or we try to involving the locals, because some of the coastal degradations actually has very big problems that many people avoided. Like, for example, it was mentioned by Dr. Tiki, like land subsidence, or maybe reclamation that brings to abrasions and sedimentations, or maybe land tenurial, which is still problem, even though we have quite strong enough rules for that, or maybe conflict of interest. For example, like the problem in the northern coast of Java, like Fredrik mentions, we have massive land subsidence and operations due to the reclamations. But almost none of our project is working on it. But we try to compensate those problems by doing something which is maybe not really suitable. Like, for example, we hope by planting mangrove, we can stop the flood. Or maybe by planting mangrove, and then we can stop the land subsidence. So I think this is not really a compatible program. And I know that this kind of problem like land subsidence, abrasions, and land tenurial is a very big problems. So most of the project or program by government or maybe by other stakeholders try to avoid it. So in most places, if I can say, many rehabilitation project was failed because we tried to ignore them. So if we really want to work in rehabilitating or restore the coastal ecosystem, for example, we really have to look at what problem actually happened, and then from that we can try to make a better program. I think that's from me, and I really open if we can have a discussion following. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Arziana and Dr. Rudy. Now, we have now reached the question and answer session and discussion part of our webinar. The session is 20 minutes. So please submit your short question via chat or raise your hand, and we will discuss it with our speaker and discussion. Please identify yourself before asking question and specify which speaker the question are directed to. We already have at least 3 questions in the chat. We may start a discussion with those questions first. Please help to display the question for our convenient reading. Can you help me to display the question, the 3 questions?
Yeah, we will present the question, Pak Sena.
Yeah. Okay, the first question is from Sandi Rahmat Harsa. How we can use an ecosystem-based approach in conservation strategies to conserve wetland-dependent species, given the increasing pressure from human activities? And the second question, how can ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction, eco-DDR strategies in wetland effectively protect urban areas from natural disasters such as flood and storm without damaging the ecological function of the wetland themselves? And how can mapping and monitoring technology such as satellite and drone monitoring be applied to improve effective wetland management and help mitigate disaster risk? I think the question addressed to Dr. Yus Rusila, as I remember. Okay, please, Dr. Yus Rusila, can you give your opinion about this question?
Yeah, thank you, Pak Sena. I try to accommodate this question. First, it should be highlighted that wetlands is actually not to avoid the disaster. I mean, when the tsunami is hitting Indonesia few years ago, many misleadingly said that the tsunami will prevent the mangrove will prevent the tsunami, for example. It's not right. I mean, there is no direct relation between tsunami and mangroves. The true fact is that the mangroves can reduce the impact of tsunami, not the tsunami itself, but the impact of tsunami. I mean, the 2004, the Aceh, the Thailand, southern Thailand, and the other, it shows that in the area where mangroves is growing properly, then the destruction is much less than without the mangroves, for example. I highlighted the word properly is because it depends on what type of ecosystem, mangrove ecosystem, what is the stand of the ecosystem. I think that there was a publication from Cambridge University and Wetlands International that certain type of mangrove, how thick it is, how tall it is, and then how the combination of both will also determine the level of reduction to the tsunami, for example. So it means that wetlands ecosystem might only function well when they are in the right condition. So that's why North Coast of Java, for example, the mangrove is growing there now, but the problem is still happening because it is a combination of disturbance, combination of disaster. When we work in North Coast of Java, in Demak, for example, we are more focused on how to solve the problem of mangrove destruction. So our energy were mostly to solve this problem. In the middle of the project, then we realized that that is not the only problem in the area. The problem is what Pak Diki, Pak Rudi mentioned is related with land subsidence, which could not be tackled like what we deal with abrasion, for example. So I fully agree with what Pak Rudi mentioned, that wetlands or nature-based solution, or in this case related with the disaster risk reduction, ECO-DRR, is site-specific. We cannot say one for all. We cannot say that what is working in Demak is also working in Sumatra, for example, or working in Sulawesi, for example. So it should be site-specific, and we have to understand what is the root cause of the problem. So I think when the second question on how this could work is actually just let or keep the ecosystem working on themselves. the role of ecosystem is just doing like what the nature is doing. So, for example, when we talk about restoration, then people plant the mangrove in the wrong side, with the wrong species, for example. So I think this is one of the problem, but also the eagerness, the people want to plant mangrove, that's good. People want to restore area, that's good. But please don't do this in the other areas. For example, I saw in Sulawesi, people doing mangrove planting in a seagrass area. And then they're happy that the mangrove is growing, but actually they diminish, they kick out the seagrass area, which is very important for dugong, for example, or planting mangrove in the mudflat area, which is very important for migratory waterbird species. On the using of monitoring technology, I don't think I can answer properly on this because that's not my specialty, or that's what we are not working on this. But yes, we do this, and then we use the monitoring technology as a big support for our work. So I cannot really mention this in detail, but yes, we are using, and then we are benefiting for these technologies. I think that's my answer the question. I'm sure not very pleased. Belum puas ya. Maybe we can talk a bit later. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandir Hamad Harsa, for question, and Dr. Jus for the answer. Okay, next move to the second question. Please help me to display the second question. The second, please. Oh, okay. This is the second question. Okay. The question is, the question does arise as to whether the line in question situated on the coast of Lake Tempe in Waju Regency, South Sulawesi, is tidal or wetland. This is due to the fact that the land is subject to the ebb and flow of the lake, with consequence that is submerged during the rain season and dried out during the dry season. I think the question from Harmin is also relevant to Dr. Jus project. So I think Dr. Jus, please again give your response to this question.
Okay, thank you. I think Prof. Devi will make additional or proper answer to this question. But I think when we talk about the definition of wetlands, there is no distinction between the tidal land and wetland. So the tidal land is part of the wetlands area. So when you say that is it tidal or wetlands, both are right. It is tidal, it is wetlands. So I think, but if you say this need to be, what you call it, counter or need to be confirmed from the definition of wetlands, which is available in Ramsar Convention. But on the other hand, we need to have a detailed information on what is the characteristic of the area, as mentioned by the one who asked this question. So if you can please mention what is the characteristic, then it's a kind of a route 3. Then it could be answered from the wetlands type as available in wetlands Ramsar Convention. But the other thing is that every country has their own definition of wetland. Indonesia is the good thing is very much in line with the definition of Ramsar Convention. The other country like Singapore, India, Canada is not exactly the same with the Ramsar Convention, but more and less similar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Additional answer from Dr. Yus Priscilla. And next, move to the third question. Please display the third question. Okay, the third question is from Ragil Fatur Rahman. He asked about a question about wetland potential. We have the potential for wetland to be a good carbon sink, although wetland has a high sensitivity because of if it is not managed properly, it will become a potential carbon producer as well. How can we manage it effectively so that its potential as carbon sink is better utilized? So I think these issues related to both Dr. Devi and also Dr. Diki. So please, Dr. Diki or Dr. Devi, respond this question.
Dr. Devi first. I think it's better.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So we're talking about the peatland. You are correct in saying that they are a good carbon sink as long as they are undisturbed or they are in a in a good condition. Then peatlands are good carbon sinks, particularly in, of course, the peat itself, the substrate or the peat sediment. And then you are also correct in saying that if it is not managed properly, it will become a potential carbon producer through the emissions. So how can we manage it effectively so that its potential is better utilized? Well, theoretically, of course, we would like to achieve that offset of emission versus sequestration. So in that sense, of course, maximizing or optimizing the storage capability is simply by conserving them and not disturbing the peatland ecosystem, because we have to remember that the actual peat itself was developed over a time frame of a very, very long time frame. So from the sequestration to the storage to the accumulation in peat is a process that takes a very, very long time. So in that sense, if we say that we want to increase that potential, then that means we are talking about a long time frame. But if we just let's say minimize or prevent any further damage to the ecosystem, then the hope is that we can still keep those storage intact. And then so the idea is, of course, in terms of the carbon emission, is we can, let's say, how do I say, sequester more carbon from the atmosphere so that these ecosystems, including peat swamp forests, can conduct their photosynthesis and then convert CO2 into photosynthetic biomass. And then secondly is to reduce the amount of emission that goes into the atmosphere. So if your question is how can we manage it effectively as a carbon sink, I think that's what I can answer, because there are those two sides. The first is to minimize the further emission. That means managing for less emission because of damage and degradation because of forest fires and burning and drainage and things like that. But also just keeping more intact in preventing further damage or disturbance to this peatland itself so that they can maintain their role as peat storage or carbon storage. I think that, and then of course you have the restoration, and so maybe you can increase the amount or the productivity of the peatland forest itself. But again, for it to be a real carbon stock, it will need a pretty long time to accumulate. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's some points I can put out there.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Devi. Dr. Diki, would you like to have add some additional information?
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. This is a good question, actually related to how to manage. And in Indonesia, the word manage maybe can be related to policy. In our case, from the geological point of view, we have also the program of CCS and CCUS, carbon storage and carbon sequestration. But to be honest, that the effectiveness of this program is still questions to us. We produce a lot of CO2, for example, but we would like to store this CO2. In our case, we produce a lot of oil and gas and also the coal, which is also the product of the peatland, actually. The coal is very old, but the peatland is very new. So if we would like to utilize this peatland, it means that we contradict the issues with the result of, let's say, the CO2 from the burning gas. Then it's also a problem for us because this peatland is actually already policies in Indonesia. There are a lot of locations of peatland converted into the more economical, more industrial. For example, like palms, and then fishery, shrimp. There are many using these locations to be an economic point of view, not from the environment point of view. So in our case, using the word manage effectively, it's a kind of contradiction, actually. And that's the first. The second one, even if we map a lot of area, a lot of locations in Indonesia, especially like in Kalimantan or Sumatra, in the northern part of Sumatra, where technically there's a stable location, we cannot avoid the geological process in this area also to contribute to the potential hazard in the future. So even if we don't manage, or maybe we have a wrong policies to convert the peatland into the more economical or industrial point of view, somewhere later on it will be also destroyed because of the nature. So related with this, let's say, CO2 sequestration, for example, mangrove as the bio rights, like Dr. Noor mentioned in the beginning, it's also useful actually to observe the CO2 from the biological point of view, not from geological point of view. But if we use this peatland, there are still many utilities for that one, and also problems, because many of the forest fire in Indonesia happens on the peatland area. So then we have to be care about this. I don't know yet whether this is a good answer or maybe just some ideas that from geological point of view, what we care is about the land and also the utilization of water in that area. We know that in peatland, the water is very acid, and it is not, let's say, good for some of the, let's say, the biological entities on site. But we already have a program last time, like converting 1 million hectares of gambut into, let's say, the paddy rice field in Kalimantan and also in Merauke. So this is also the problem of how we conserve the locations and how we survive with that one. From geological point of view, we study about the possibility of using the hydrology, the surface water, and also the groundwater in that area. So it depends on how we can see the problems, and then how, up to what extent that we would like to manage the effectiveness of this peatland. Yeah, because in many cases, actually, peatland is maybe in the future useful for the sedimentary utilities. For example, like minerals. We need a lot of minerals now for battery, for electric vehicle, for converting what the electric production from the coal. Now we have the coal electric production, right? But in the future, maybe the peatland is as the source of energy because it's containing biological compound inside. Maybe in the future will be used for the energy storage in the future. That's the point, Dr. Subrat. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Digi. I see in the screen some of an of participant would like to ask directly. Arif Darana raise a hand, and so please, Arif Darana, ask your question directly to the speaker. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. So maybe I think it's not about the question. What would like I like to say? Firstly, I would like to say hi and gratitude to my supervisor, Dr. Diki. I hope you are well there. So
Thank you, Arif.
I would like maybe it's just a discussion for me that when I saw and I follow this discussion that there's an equation as well as wondering what kind of what we call it, what kind of knowledge that maybe the community will be need for them for manage the conservation of their area. Well, actually, in my opinion, I think they already have their own knowledge and capability, but maybe they forget about it. This is the problem with the urbanization with the new technology and everything. So I think what should we do for now is let's explore the local wisdom for that. And then let's strengthen the local wisdom from the modality that they already have. And it will be easier for them to understand that this is the thing that they already have, their ancestors have, they need to do it again and strengthen it. And I think since we are a lot of academician and technocrat, how can we collaborate the local wisdom with the current technology so we can strengthen the local wisdom as well as the any effort for the restoration as well as the conservation. And the other things is I would like to, yeah, let's think together how can we manage, because the last question is very fruitful. I guess it's a very good question. How can we manage? Well, if we talk about the technical part, I believe all of you are expert in how can we manage from downstream, from the upstream to the downstream of the land, from the on the horizontal perspective and the vertical perspective from the upper, from the sky until the earth, until the subsurface. I think in the technical aspect, in the engineering aspect, I believe all of you are the expert at. The question is, how can this solution, how can this technical solution can be good and can be understood by the stakeholders, because inevitable, because the management will always say about the policies like Dr. Diki says, as well as the one who manage the government, the local and all of the actors, including the local community. Let's say at least more than 5 institutions are in the same basin. Like from the sky, we have BMKG, or the Meteorological Agency and Geophysics Agency. For we talk about the weather, and then the water from the sky to the earth. On the earth itself, we talk about water. We have the public ministry, the public work ministry. And then talk about the mangrove itself, we have the National Agency of Mangrove and the National Agency of Mangrove as well. We have an environmental ministry, environmental and forestry ministries, and another actor from the local government, and from the water, from the subsurface, we have energy and uh, energy and natural resources ministries. So how can all of these actors who should bring the good policies, sit together and make the comprehensive policies to manage this situation? So I think this is what we should initiate, or what what kind of what kind of loop that we need to close between policies from both actors, because the harmonization of the policies from each actor is very imperative. So that's why we need to, as a thinker, as the think tank for them, we need to give the enabler, what we call it, like the white paper or something like that, because this is the things that we should initiate to the government itself. And beyond that, the program also will be very useful if the NGO also, the NGO will be always work with the government, but beyond that, if we could explore more on the local wisdom and enhance free local wisdom to the policies and tailor-made for each, at least for each regency or district, it will be very great to help the local community understand the policies, as well as the conducting the conservation for their wetland, as well as the peatland and the mangrove area. I think that's all from me.
Okay, thank you much, Arif. But I think we do not need to have more response, long response from Arif. I think it is more opinion of the Arif. Meanwhile, we already have one more question in the chat. I read it. This is quite short. How long will climate change impact peatland in the future? So I would like to have some opinion from the speaker. It's quite common. Do not need to specialize. So I would like to have maybe from Dr. Devi. Would you like to give some response about these issues? How will climate change impact the peatland in the future?
Well, first of all, I think if we talk about climate change, then that means it's related to the cause of increase in CO2 emissions in the atmosphere. So I think we have to look at it in terms of what this will the whole effects of what the root cause of climate change is going to produce to the ecosystems. So if we look at the peatlands, then, and this is, I'm assuming we're talking about the tropical peat swamp forest, because actually peatlands are all over the world. We have peatlands in the temperate areas as well, although they are different from our tropical forested peatlands. I think the main consequence that the people are worried about it with the climate change is that if there is an increase in temperature, whether that is only a few degrees, that will greatly affect the distribution of all types of ecosystems. So because it will affect the tolerance levels of plants and animals, and so that will the possible effect on peatlands, if we talk about peatlands in general, is could also be the change in general distribution. In other words, the spatial extent could be affected. That's when we talk about the increase in temperature. But then again, as I mentioned, we have to remember the root cause of the climate change, and that is the global increase in temperature because of the accumulation of anthropogenic carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And then in that sense, then we have to see the effects on photosynthesis. So how the peatlands will be affected by the productivity of vegetation in general, or peatlands in particular, in taking in, sequestering the CO2 in the atmosphere. So that is a question that I think is until now, although research has been going on for 30 years, 50, almost 50 years, people are still not sure or cannot give a good answer as to what is the effects of this elevated carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to plants in the long term. So whether that will change how that will change the physiological and ecological effects to the plants. So again, the answer then first would be a change in general distribution patterns of all ecosystems, including peatlands. And then secondly is the change because of the CO2 that is being added to the atmosphere. That will probably change the what would I say, the whole pattern of peatland distribution, I think. It's speaking about peatlands in general.
Okay,
Can
thank you,
I-
Dr. Devi.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Devi, also for the explanation related to the climate change. To our concern, the climate change issues that we have now is the anthropogenic, actually. But if we study about the historical geology, from geological point of view, we have history, we have the records since our last glacial maximum, LGM, that's what we call, about 15,000 years ago. We have three, let's say, the high rise temperature in Dryas period, older Dryas period, and younger Dryas period. The younger Dryas period means about 10,000 years ago, we have the hot climate on Earth, and it is recorded in geological stratification. So if we see that this climate change is based on the nature, not by the anthropogenic, actually we are facing this higher temperature again. So if we concern about the nature and plus the anthropogenic cause, so then it will be double. The possibility that we will have a high rise temperature in the future. And it means that the peatlands, the lands that we have now also will decrease because of the high rise water, actually. So then if we would like to manage the peatland in the future, it means that we have no choice, actually, if we want to put these conditions as long as possible, we have to stop using the land, especially in the peatland. But it is impossible because, for example, like in our case, our golden age next time in 2060, we will have, let's say, the demographic bonus. So it means that there will be a lot of young people who need works, who needs, let's say, the establishment. So there will be a lot of urban development in the future. And we cannot avoid the peatland, the marshland, of course, the wetlands. So then if we put that one into one management, then it is very, let's say, difficult to get rid of that one. So as Arif mentioned, we have to work together, actually. And so far, for these issues, the wetland issues, the earth scientists, in this case of the geology, the geodetic, engineering, for example, or for the geography, we don't have any significant cooperation yet. That is in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dikis. It's very, very informative additional information. Okay, we have one more question in the chat. Please help me to display the last question. So the last question will from Wahab, Desa Wisata Andalan Bulukumba, is from Sulawesi. The question is how to manage our forests to protect land and protect endemic animal to make them working together with tourism. Okay, this is a quite general, but I would like to hear from Dr. Arziana your opinion about this question. Please, Dr. Arziana.
Yes, thank you. This is talking about the forest on wetland, right? Forested wetland. So how do we manage our forests to protect land and protect endemic animals? I think we have to understand that forest is the habitats for wildlife, but also forest has important for community livelihoods. So we have to balance between the two. And if you want to make them working together with tourism, in certain areas, tourism is actually a tool in conservation. So it is a tool to allow people that they know what wildlife are surrounding them. And actually tourism is also used in many areas to conserve, because by seeing, people will help in protecting. So I think that protections and tourism can go hand in hand. Actually, it has to, because again, tourism, I think for me, is a tool in conservation. So you can use tourism to protect the forest, and that way you will protect the endemic animals through tourism activities such as wildlife watching, etc. I think that should be short enough to answer the questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Arziana. Okay, I think I should close the question and answer session because the time is very limited. So thank you to all our speakers and discussion for sharing their knowledge and insight today. It is clear that collaborative effort in sustainable wetland management are crucial for building resilience in Southeast Asia. Regardless the technical approach and perspective, all the efforts should have the ultimate goal of improving societal and well-being without neglecting the balance between ecological integration, biodiversity conservation, and sustainable use. That is the norm of all natural resource management. Okay, now I should pass the mic back to the Master of Ceremony to close this session. Please, Mr. of Ceremony.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sena, for expertly moderating today's discussion. Also, a special thanks to our speakers, Pak Yusuf Zilanur, Dr. Diki Muslim, and Dr. Devi, for your insightful and enrichful presentation. And also to our discussants, Dr. Arziana Sungkar and Dr. Rudi Pribadi, for your valuable insight. And to all participants, thank you for actively engaging in the discussions. We hope today's session has provided you valuable insights into sustainable wetland management. Okay, before we end this webinar, I'm excited to announce the third and final session in our webinar series. Could you please present the last slide? Okay. Okay. The next webinar titled Collaborative Strategies of Government, Technology and Innovation, and Community for Sustainable Wetland Management. And it will take place in this November. And we look forward to meeting you all in this webinar. Once again, thank you for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And see you
Thank
next
you.
time.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
for all participants, don't
Thank you.
forget to fill the evaluation of this webinar. Thank you.